So high volume operation is also designed for high efficiency with high utilization. What does it mean by high utilization? We optimize everything, optimizations of the resources, so that we will have high utilizations of resources, of equipments, and everything that we put in our plants. Okay, high volume flow operation with speed routing. And for the high volume operation, the bottleneck are easily identified. So this is this diagram is to show us the bottleneck. So here is the bottleneck where every flow, every chain will go to this one exit. So we can identify based on the high volume operation, our bottleneck can be easily identified here. Okay, right? And then for the high volume operation, we commonly use line balancing. From this diagram, you can see that a line balancing here, everybody will have the same line of balancing. Okay, the dedicated workers here or staff will have a line balancing so that it is easy for us to process our productions. Okay. Right. Okay. So for low volume operation, low volume operation is low volume shop operation are designed for flexibility. Here, the key words that we use for the low volume operation is the flexibility in terms of you can make any changes in terms of your productions. Okay, you can make any changes depending on the demand, depending on the requirement made by the management as well as the customer. So under low volume operation, we use more general purpose equipment. Okay, and then we can customize product with higher margin because it's basically the high flexibility, the higher margin that we can earn, we can obtain. So for each product or service may have its own routing, scheduling is more difficult. So as compared to the high volume, okay, high volume, low volume scheduling is much more difficult because why? Because we need to have high flexibility because we need to fulfill the requirement made by the customer or our departments. And then for this low volume operation, bottleneck move around depending upon the product being produced at any time, given time. Okay, so we can identify bottleneck, but it is moved around depending upon the product being produced. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is to show you the Gantt chart. Under low volume operation, we can use Gantt chart. So I'm sure that all the students have come across what is Gantt chart, developed by Henry Gantt. So basically for this type of Gantt chart, it is load chart. So we can see that we have different types of person with different types of time given for them to carry out job A, job G, job B, and various types of job. Okay. All right. So this one is the Gantt chart for the progress chart. So here there are two elements that we need to show in this Gantt chart. So in the parenthesis or bracket, it is basically plan activity progress. In the bracket, it is what your task or activity that you plan. For the shaded, the blue, the gray color is basically to indicate actual activity progress. So here, what you can see here, what you plan is basically so a little bit delay here because this is actual activity progress. So you can see that a little bit delay here. Okay, so this is progress chart. So now, if you know that there are some delay here, so basically you can make any changes in the following activity, right? Okay, basically Gantt chart is activity and the time. Okay, so this is the two things that you need to have for your Gantt chart. But for the activity, it is basically either you need to show plan activity progress or actual activity progress. All right. So for the scheduling, we have two types of scheduling techniques. The first types of techniques is forward scheduling. The second types is backward scheduling. For the forward scheduling, we can start the order. We can start immediately when the order is received. So it basically end up we can finish our task earlier. Okay, so we can use to determine the earliest completion date. So meaning to say that you can start your task as soon as possible or immediately. Okay, so we can also determine the promised date, and based on that we can build inventory because we know when to start. We know what would be the earliest date to start our task or activity. Meanwhile, for the backward scheduling, we can use the MRP. MRP is material requirement planning. So we need to be assisted with the good system, yeah, inventory system. So for the backward scheduling, we schedule last operation to be complete on the due date. Meaning to say that our last activity needs to be scheduled first in order for us to complete on the due date, right? And then we schedule previous operation back from the last operation. So our last operation, we schedule it basically based on our last operation. Let's say, for example, our last operation is yesterday. So we need to schedule based on yesterday operations. And then for this backward scheduling, we are basically can reduce inventory. Okay, we can reduce inventory because we can basically schedule our activity from previous operations. Okay. Alright, so this is basically to show the scheduling technique based on the diagram. Okay, for the forward scheduling, as I mentioned to you, we can start immediately as soon as possible. Okay, the moment we start, we receive a new order, we can have a resource assembly, and then next product manufacturing, and then after it is manufactured, we have a finished product, we can have a shipment preparation and delivery. Meanwhile, for the backward scheduling, as I mentioned earlier, it is basically based on the previous what? Previous operation. Okay, we can schedule based on the basically based on start from the data on the delivery, shipment preparation, product manufacturing, resource assembly. So it is actually backward scheduling, right? Okay, so this is another example for the scheduling technique, forward scheduling. If you can see here, operation are assigned so that the production take place at the earliest possible time. So here we have the first task, okay, is on the 1st September, and then after we complete forming process, we can immediately start our forming process we can start our forming process immediately after we complete this task. Okay, so we can immediately start our second task. Okay, so we know that here, okay, we know the assembly process will start after we complete for the first forming process. So these are basically the deadline, the due date. Okay, so from here we can see we can start immediately. Here we also can start immediately. Okay, alright. Meanwhile, for the backward scheduling, operation are assigned as close to the due date as possible. For the forward, we try to achieve our due date, but here for the backward scheduling, we know that our due date here. Okay, we are try to we try to schedule our operation close to the due date possible. Meaning to say that it is close to the due date, we can start here. But basically we will start here until, and then we can start this activity, right? Okay. Alright, so now of scheduling direction. So the scheduling is fundamental to the scheduling process. So production can be, as mentioned to you, forward or backward from any date depending on timing and scheduling requirement. So again, forward for the scheduling date, schedule production can be started today or tomorrow or any day in the future. The production is scheduled forward in time to the earliest possible end date. So opposite to forward is backward. Okay, schedule production to start as late as possible. As I mentioned, as I show you in the earlier diagram, backward scheduling is based on the date when the production must be completed. The schedule count backward from the date to the latest possible date the production can be started and still be completed on time. Okay, so if you can understand this diagram, it is easy for you to understand these descriptions, right? Okay, so schedule specification, of course, for the specification of schedule, of course, we need to have control. Okay, why control is needed? Control the planning method by scheduling forward or backward, because once you identify whether you want to have a forward scheduling or backward scheduling, you can control everything. Your resources, your human resource, your equipment, so everything can be controlled. So with scheduling, you can also have elements of optimizations. Optimize meaning to say that you can optimize the use of resources, your raw material, your workers, your staff, okay, and then the capacity of the resources. Once you optimize your resources and then you know your capacity of resources, the optimization can be achieved effectively. Alright, so this approach is basically help to identify alternative resources that you should be used. If in the case that you can achieve the optimization, you can plan for the alternative resources. Okay, and then you can also optimize the use of material by scheduling production based on the availability of the required material, because you know that what types of material that are required for you to produce your product, for you to produce your finished product. Okay, and then you can also have the schedule and synchronize. Schedule and synchronized reference productions are adjusted when the production order schedule is changed. So this is where the terms flexibility. Okay, flexibility, that you can make changes in order for you to achieve the production's target. Okay. All right. So what are the components of scheduling? The component of scheduling is the direction, of course, backward or forward, the capacity of the resources, and then the material optimization, because we would like to have the cost minimizations. Okay. Okay, so under the production scheduling here, okay, just to show you what is the production scheduling, we have the traditional focus as well as the customer focus. For the traditional focus, we use the push strategy, and then it is basically inventory based, but please do remember that if it is inventory based, we need to have a dedicated cost for the maintenance, for the storage, for the warehouse. And for the traditional focus, of course, we focus in terms of the mass production. We need to say that the high volume of operation. Meanwhile, for the customer focus, what will be our strategy? Is we pull strategy, meaning to say that we try to attract the customer to come to buy our product, okay, to have a trust for our product. And then it is basically customer order based. So this one, we have a very high customization and high flexibility. And then we can have for the manufacturing mass customization, because once we would like to fulfill what customer want, we need to basically, our production have to be customer order based with mass customizations, high customization and high flexibility of producing the product. Okay, and then this is to show you the schedule developments. Of course, for the schedule development here, it is basically in terms of the result in other time management process to determine the start and end date. We need to have start, we need to have end dates. Okay, and then we need to have a to create a realistic project schedule, okay, that provide a basis for the monitoring project progress for the time dimension of the project. And we can use the Gantt chart, PERT analysis, critical path method, CPM, and also the critical change scheduling, right? So this is the schedule developments that everybody need to understand the operational definitions of the scheduling. All right, so effective scheduling, just to share with you that it is basically can cost saving, increase in productivity, and we can also have other benefit, like for example, we have a very effective or efficient delivery. We can have our resources to be used, can be used to best advantage, meaning to say that you can optimize your resources, less waste, okay, and then you can also have the circular economy, and then you can also have a customer will be satisfied, customer satisfaction, high customer satisfaction. All right, to share with you the constraint in scheduling, of course, we need to have a very good system capacity. So if you don't have a very good system capacity, you cannot do a very good or effective scheduling. Right, so you need to also have a product or service design, a proper good, well-designed product design. You need to have a dedicated equipment with the equipment selection for this batch, this production flow, this production process. Need to have a dedicated equipment, and then you need to have a worker selection, high skill, semi skill, full skill workers, and the training. You need to give them training. Okay, and then constraint in the scheduling, aggregate planning, and master scheduling. You need to have a very good scheduling where you need to have a master to refer, master scheduling to refer. Everybody can refer to this master scheduling, right? Okay. This is constraint. So this is scheduling difficulty. Okay, difficulty in terms of the scheduling is first variability in setup time, processing time, interruption, changes in the set of job. Sometimes when we do have high flexibility, we need to have the elements of changes in the set of job. Difficulty, second difficulty is except for small job set, there is no method for identifying optimal schedule. Yes, of course we can plan, but sometimes our plan cannot be cannot be cannot be obtained or cannot be completed. We can plan hang on sorry. Ibu Devi.
Yes.
1 second 1
Okay,
minute,
okay.
1 minute, sorry.
Okay, take your time. All right, so everyone, we are learning about scheduling, and now we are in scheduling difficulties. If you have any question, you can just write in the chat box or chat columns. You can either use Bahasa Indonesia or also in English. Later on, I'm going to help you to convey the question. Thank you very much. Let's wait for Dr. Niti Hirawati. It's all right.
Shall I continue, Ibu Devi?
Yes.
Sorry for
please.
the interruptions.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the second difficulties is, of course, we have we need to have the optimal schedule, because if we don't have optimal schedule, we will basically will be facing other difficulties, like for example, we cannot plan our resources well, we cannot do our procurement activity well, we cannot have our delivery, effective delivery, and then we cannot meet our customer demands. Okay, and then of course scheduling is not an exact science, meaning to say that Of course, we cannot, test our scheduling in the laboratory or whatsoever, so that we can have a very proper scheduling. But it is basically human based activity, because whatever scheduling is made is basically based on the manager or those who are responsible for this scheduling activity. And then it is an ongoing task of a manager, because after the completed one project completed, one production completed, the manager need to again start scheduling. So it is what we call it as ongoing scheduling. Right. Okay. Project, okay, this is just to show very brief or common project scheduling. Of course, we know that for project scheduling, we have the precedent relationship, sequence activity, determine activity time and cost, and estimate material workers. This is just to show to the student that we also have the project scheduling. And purpose of project scheduling, of course, we want to show the relationship between activities. We can show the precedent and successor for each activity, and we can set our times and costs, as well as we can allocate our resources, like for example our resource, right? Okay. For the scheduling of activity using Gantt chart, of course, as I mentioned earlier, a Gantt chart is a visual project management tool that help to plan and schedule project for every size. Here we can see that the anatomy of the Gantt chart. Okay, we have the activity as well. We have the time. Okay, and then Gantt chart can help ensure that leader and worker manage their time and resources effectively, because under time you can manage your time, and then resources is basically to show the what are kind of activity that been allocated for that resources, or what types of resources has been allocated for each activity or different activity. So it is basically a visual interpretations of project which give an overview of a project progress, okay, timeline, task over its entire time frame. So here we can show the progress, we can show different types of activity, and then we can show the different timeline. Okay, so here the resources is basically can be allocated. Undo. Okay, resources here is basically to allocate for each of the activity that you have highlighted or listed, right? Okay, so scheduling with PERT, program evaluation review techniques. Okay, so what is PERT? Is the network model that allow for randomness in activity completion time. What we would like to highlight here is the completion time. Right, two used to control the length of a project, the durations of the project, and then it's basically developed by the US Navy for the Polaris project in 1950s. Okay, it is basically military project, so it is adapted as educational tool for business manager, and it has the potential to reduce both time and cost. Right. Okay, so under PERTs, and also the critical path method, it is basically the management technique. So here we can create out of the need to plan, schedule, and okay, here we can see that schedule. We can see schedule and control complex project. Okay, so under PERT or CPM, we can answer the following question: how long will the entire project take to complete it? Meaning to say that the durations of the project. So which are the risks involved? What types of risks that been involved by the project? We have different types of risks. Which are the critical activity or tasks in the project which could delay the entire? Meaning to say that if you found the critical path, if you will delay 1 day, meaning to say that the whole project completion will be delay 1 day. So okay, is the project on schedule, behind schedule, or ahead of the schedule? So based on PERT, we will know that whether the project or the productions is on schedule or behind schedule or ahead of schedule. right? So if the project must be finished earlier than planned, what is the best way to do this at the least cost? Because every project need to deal with the cost. Okay. How many minutes left, Bu Dewi?
It's around 15 minutes.
15 minutes, right? Okay. All right. So this is basically to show the PERT diagram. So PERT diagram can be categorized into two types: activity on node diagram. Okay, these are basically the activity on node diagram. So activity here is on nodes. Okay, so we have activity A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so so node actually represent activity. Okay. So this one, sorry, how many activity that we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we know that for each activity, it is basically on the nodes. That's why we call it activity on node diagram. Okay, we can begin activity A immediately because the activity A will not depending on any activity. Alright, so A, B, C, this is basically activity on nodes. Alright, so arrow is basically to indicate the precedence. The precedent meaning to say that A is the predecessor to B. A is the precedence to B. I'm not really sure, Ibu Dewi, whether the student have already come across this. Yes, okay, yes, good. I just would like just to highlight this. Okay, so here is activity on arrow diagram. So basically, the activity is an arrow, so we know that the start time and the end dates. Okay, all right. So this is another diagram. Okay, and then this is another diagram. So I'm sure that the student know how many paths here. How many paths here? Probably we need to have how many paths? 1 path, 2 paths, 3 paths, right? So student, you agree with me? We have three paths for this diagram. 1 path, 2 paths, 3 paths, yeah. So you know that the number in the box here to indicate early start, finish, late start, late finish, right? So for the critical path method, I'm sure that the student have come across what is critical path method. It is basically a technique where you identify tasks that are necessary for project completion and determine scheduling flexibility. A critical path is a project management is the longest sequence of activity. You have got to understand what is the longest sequence of activity that must be finished on time in order for the entire project to be completed, right? Okay, so here the red color is to indicate the critical path method. So how many paths that we have? How many paths that we have? One path, 1 path, 2 paths, and 3 paths. But for the critical path method is the third path. How many days? 4 days. 1 plus 2 plus 1. So 4 days. For the first path, only 3 days. So what will be your critical path? Is the bottom, the red color to indicate that 4 days. So if you delay 1 day, so your critical path will also be delayed by 5 days. Yeah. So there will be lots of consequences if you delay your activity, right? So this is another to show critical path method. So here is a detail that we have the calculations here. So from the red color to basically to show you the critical path, right? So this is another critical path method activity on arrow. All right. So with that, I thank you, Ibu Dewi. I have to expedite the process. Sorry, because I have a meeting.
Yeah. It's all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Niti Hirawati, for such a great presentation. We have learned the scheduling for today. That is very important for the operation research and also for agribusiness company, because it also has a relation with the planning and then cost and also decision making. We have learned the critical path method also, as you guys earlier in the beginning of this semester know and have a tutorial on how to count the critical path and etc. So now we go with the Q&A session. It's a discussion session since Dr. Niti Hirawati has it's an accreditation or big project in your office. So maybe one until three question would be all right. Okay. So now, ladies and gentlemen, class of operation research, it's time for us to have a Q&A. Is there any question? Apakah ada pertanyaan? Boleh disampaikan di kolom chat atau raise hand ya. Alright. Ada mahasiswa Kediri juga. We have a student of chemistry. Okay. Any question? Harus ada pertanyaan ya, nggak pulang nanti kalau nggak ada pertanyaan. Alright, Bu Evi maybe or Bu Heptari, you have a question, one or two only?
Probably too early in the morning.
Yes.
Same thing goes to in Malaysia. A student just
All right, but here in Brawijaya University and especially in Faculty of Agriculture, the first class started at 7. We go back from Ramadan schedule. During the Ramadan, we start at 9.
I see. So you basically the class start at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, 7 o'clock in Indonesia, 8 o'clock in Malaysia. Okay.
Yeah.
But normally in UPM, if the class start 8 o'clock, sometimes the student will reach to the lecture room 8:15 or 8:30. So it's very difficult to handle the.
All right. Almost the same here. Okay. Monggo, ada pertanyaan? All right, so we have one question from Isnaini Fatima, class yeah. What are the different about forward scheduling and backward scheduling, and what is the benefit? Thank you very much for the question.
Okay, thank you. So let me just show again okay, so basically here, if you can see that it's about forward scheduling and backward scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if we can see that here for the forward scheduling, we can immediately start the productions when we receive the order. When we receive the order, meaning to say that the moment we receive the order, we can start immediately the productions of our product. So the benefit of using forward scheduling is we can finish as soon as possible because we try to achieve the due date. Okay, so here it is actually the earliest completion date, right? Here we can see that this is the due date, the due date. So we can finish almost here. So we have an ample time for the forward scheduling, right? And then for the backward scheduling, but we can build inventory. So here, if it is forward, where is this build inventory here? This one is basically the inventory start to build in this area. Okay, start to be built. All right. So, however, for the backward scheduling, okay, the benefit is we can have the inventory in hand, okay, in our organizations. But please do remember, but the moment that we have our inventory in our organizations, we need to have a dedicated storage warehouse. So the moment we store our product, we store our finished product, so we need to have allocated cost for the maintenance. we need to have a dedicated person to maintain to manage our inventory. For the backward scheduling, of course, we need to use the material resource planning. Yeah, so we schedule last operation to be completed on the due date. What does it mean? Okay, we schedule last operation to be completed on the due date. Last operation here, if we can see that this is our due date. So our operation, it is basically close to the due date. Why? The benefit is for this back work, we can reduce inventory, meaning to say that this due date, the moment the production has been completed, we have our finished product, then we can immediately deliver to the customer. So this is what we call it as a reduced inventory. The benefit of reducing inventory is we don't need to have a very big warehouse or storage or dedicated person or cost for the maintenance of the inventory, because the moment that you finish or complete your production, you can immediately will do the delivery. So from here, you can understand what is the meaning of the backward scheduling here, because we start our operation is close to the deadline. Okay?
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay, Isna, I hope that it can answer the question, and thank you for the information, Dr. Niti Hirawati. Now we go with the second question that is from, wait a moment please, from Nabila Andin from class H, class H. Does service company need a scheduling operation too? So we are talking about service company. And also, what is the proper type of scheduling technique for a service company? Forward or backward scheduling? All right, that was the
Okay,
question
thank you.
from Nabila Andin.
All right. Okay, Nabila. Okay, so yes, service company also need to have scheduling operation. Like for example, for the service, we do have the workers, right? Like for example, you just imagine in the restaurant. Okay, so the restaurant need to have a scheduling as well, because if let's say honey will your responsibility, your work, your task is basically on Monday, and then your friend, okay, let's say Ibu Novi is on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday Niti Hirawati, okay, and then probably Ibu Effie in the Thursday. So yes, service company also have the scheduling operation as well. Okay, and then what would be the shift for Niti or Ibu Dewi? Then based on this scheduling, we will know that from 8 or from 7 to 4. In Malaysia, from 8 to 5. Okay, so we need to have, although it is services, not only for the product but also the services. So for the also what the proper scheduling technique for service company for, this is basically based on the company itself. If
Mhm.
if the company would like to have it backward, because they backward or forward is basically how they do the investigation or homework, which one is the best for their company. This is not the right or wrong types of scheduling. It's basically the decision made by the management based on the data, based on the human resource, based on the capacity, based on the equipment that the company have in their operations,
All right.
in their premises.
Mhm.
So depending on the company. Okay.
Okay. So we are in Indonesia, have a service company like our school, like University of Brawijaya, and also hospital. We have already, like what you have said earlier, the schedule of doctors who has the practice, and also service company like service provider. We have JNA, Tiki, and etc. that that provide delivery service like that, Dr. Niti Hirawati. Okay, I hope that it can answer your question, Miss Nabila. Thank you very much for your attention in this 3-in-1 program. Okay, all right, one more question before we end this one, this 3-in-1. From Muhammad Fauzi. Okay. Hello, ma'am. Good morning. Permission to ask. Wow, so complete, right? So the application of scheduling in operation management, is it possible in the agricultural sector, such as crop cultivation, to implement low volume operation? Can you give an example, and what scheduling technique is the best, forward or backward? So this is for on-farm level.
Okay. So, Mr. Muhammad Fauzi Ramadan. Okay. Application scheduling in operation management. Yes, we can have the low volume operation, but normally, if it is low volume operation, because under the agriculture sector, we have the plantation as well as the smallholder, right? So for the plantation or estate, of course, we do have the high volume operation because we need to buy the input production in bulky, in a big quantity, so that we can reduce cost. Okay, so normally we try to have a high volume operation because a mass production. But for the low volume operation, is basically for the smallholder, for the a smallholder or a small farm. Okay, but we try to have a high volume operation because we can reduce cost of operation, because agriculture product is very low margin. So if it is low margin, we need to produce high, we need to produce more, because it basically based on the quantity. If the profit margin is very high, it's okay for us to produce in a low volume operation. But for agriculture commodity, agriculture crop, agriculture product, it is very low margin. So we need to have high volume operations. Okay. So backward or forward is basically depending on types of the commodity, types of the crop, types of the agriculture product. Okay, so that one, it will decide whether the manager of the plantation will decide whether it is forward or backward. So basically, the experience is it is forward. Let's say, for example, you plant nanas, pineapple, to sell during Chinese New Year. So you need to have a planning when to harvest, when to put hormone, okay, when to put fertilizer, so that by the time the pineapple can be harvested, then it is exactly on the Chinese New Year celebrations. Same goes to the bulu, I do bamboo for the rendang, right? So when to start harvest the bulu, the bamboo for the rendang, for making rendang during Eid Mubarak. So basically, we will go for the forward scheduling. That one is for the agriculture sector. Okay, Muhammad Fauzi.
Okay, I hope that it can answer your question. Thank you, Muhammad Fauzi. We have already had 3 questions now. Okay, so I think that was the end of the Q&A session, and we would like to thanks to Dr. Niti Hirawati for the clear explanation and the valuable information that was given to us during the 3-in-1 program. And on behalf of the Department of Agricultural Social Economy, Faculty of Agriculture, University Brawijaya, we would like to say thank you, and we do hope to meet you again in other semester, in some other time, with the topic of operation research and agribusiness management. I think that's all. I would like also to say thank you very much for Bu Evi Yuswita, Bu Heptari, Elita Dewi, and all students attended this morning session of 3-in-1 program. I'll see you again in the next session of 3-in-1 program. And thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for having me. Inshallah, we will meet again in the next 3-in-1 program. Assalamualaikum, and thank you for the secretariat. Okay, Ibu Novi, thank you, and
Thank
also
you,
all the
Dr.
docent and the
Niti.
lecturer.
All
Okay,
right.
bye. Assalamualaikum. Take care.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you. Terima kasih Bu Evi, Bu Dari, dan semuanya.
Terima kasih.
Ya, you may leave the
Selamat
forum. Thank
menikmati
you
pertemuan.
very much.